It's Your Future. I'm Ada Harden, Volunteer Resource Specialist for AISD. It's Your Future is a program for AISD students and others who want to learn more about specific career fields. People from all walks of life will be here to share some of their experiences with you on our program, and we hope that our guests will help you become more aware of what you can do now to plan for the kind of future you want. You know, it's nice to listen to people and how they shape their lives, and listening to these people, we hope will give you a better idea about how to plan for your future. We have a very special person with us, and I'm so excited, and I know you will be too. Her name is Jody Conradt, and she is the head coach of the women's basketball team, the Lady Longhorns. And welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming by. I have had the hardest time catching up with you.
I've been on the move. You have to do that in my profession. If you stay in one place too long, then you might be without a job.
Oh, they wouldn't do that. You're too good.
Well, I hope so. But, you know, it's important that we stay ahead of the game, and that involves a lot of things, not only on the court, but recruiting and correspondence with prospective athletes, all those kinds of things.
And you say recruiting. I'm so excited about. Tell us about how you go about recruiting. What do you actually look for when you do that?
Well, it's become a very complicated process, and you know, I'm identifying athletes or prospective athletes now as early as freshman and sophomore year in high school. So we've just completed a recruiting season for next year, but we're already about to go out now into the high schools and visit with players who are going to be seniors, who are now juniors in high school. So it's an ongoing process, and it never ends.
Oh, and you seem to be so into it.
Well, you really have to be, because it is a very intense part of the job, and you feel as if you could devote 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to that, because if you're sitting still, you're wondering what your opposition is doing. What are they doing to impress that youngster to come to their university? And it's the kind of thing where you try to sell your program, you sell the University of Texas, and you convince them that that's the place to be.
Well, you certainly have some wonderful girls and players out there. I mean, I watch them all the time, and they're just absolutely wonderful. Let's back up a moment, though, and talk about a little bit of your educational background and how you came into this particular area. You know, let's talk about, what about your did you play basketball in high school or anything like that?
I did play, and you know, it's sort of happenstance. I didn't have any plan for what I was going to be, but I think timing is critical. And I was a very active person. I grew up in a small Texas town where playing basketball was the thing to do. Everyone in my high school played, boys and girls. And I was amazed when I went off to school and I went to Baylor to discover that not everybody had that opportunity to be active in sports. I didn't consider coaching as an option for me because I'd always had men as coaches, so I didn't know that that was a profession that women could choose. I started to major in history or something traditional, thought that I would teach, but as I got into it, I missed being active in athletics and sought an avenue which I could do that, and I found out that Baylor had an intramural program and, in fact, a women's basketball team. So got involved in that way and really got back into an activity that I thought I'd given up for life.
That's absolutely wonderful. And how long have you been into coaching?
Well, I've been coaching since 1965, and it's been a profession that's been extremely exciting because we're in a time of very rapid and a lot of growth at this point. You know, when I started out, nobody knew about women's athletics. Only the small towns in Texas was it popular. But now we're starting to see real fan support, media attention, and it's a tremendously exciting time to be involved.
And it seems to me it would put an awful lot of pressure on you.
Well, it is, but I don't think that it's the kind of thing that you deal with. You know, a lot of times we don't know we're under pressure. It's just something that we all do, and we all have pressures in every job. The only difference in mine and most people's is that everybody knows when you fail and everybody knows when you succeed.
Yes, and how do you deal with that? I mean, you know, I know that it's difficult, you know, to have the record like you've had this year, and then at the very end, you know, kind of fall off. And
extremely difficult. I'll never get over that one. It was a very, very hard loss. We all have goals, and each team that we're a part of sets goals, and that team does their very best to attain those goals. Sometimes you reach them and sometimes you don't. Sometimes goals are unrealistic, but you set them high so that you hope you can get there. This year we thought getting to the national championship was a realistic goal, but it was taken away from us on a last-second shot. But I think those kinds of things happen, when you're a risk taker, when you go out on the floor, there's always a chance that you're going to lose. And it doesn't mean that you're a lesser person. It simply means that you've got to go back, reassess, and try harder next time.
That's a wonderful explanation of that, too. I think it's important that our students out there hear that. You know.
Well, we all fail. Nobody in life, in any endeavor, is successful all the time. And I think one of the things that's happened with athletics, and it's unfortunate, is that youngsters who are involved, when they lose, sometimes they think that affects their worth. They're not as good a person as they were if they would have won. And that's certainly not the case. In many instances, we find that losing makes us a better person because it makes us stronger.
And how do you girls take that? I know they were very disappointed having gone so far into the season and with a winning streak like they were doing, and then to lose the games. How did that affect their ability to play? Because I think you had some more games even after the main game.
Well, actually, that one game ended our season, and when it did end it, then it was very disappointing. And the reason that it was more disappointing than others is that we were a very talented team. We were ranked #1 throughout the majority of the season, and the national championship was played in Austin, Texas. So we knew that usually when you end the season, you're far away, you come home and it's all over. But to come home and have other people play in your gym in front of your fans is a very difficult thing to cope with, and that's what made this loss stand out in my mind. But I saw an attitude from those players that makes me think they're going to come back with a vengeance. I think they have something to prove. Usually when the season's over, regardless of how you end it, you're relieved because the pace is going to slow down, the demands are not quite so great, and you sigh a sigh of relief. I didn't see that with this team or with the coaching staff. I think every person involved wanted to turn right back around and start next season that day. So we're all very anxiously awaiting November, and I think it's going to be a good season for us.
That's wonderful. When you're recruiting, are there some special traits that you look for or skills that you look for in students? And if there are, what would they be?
Well, there are several different things that we look for. And of course, the first is to identify outstanding physical skill. Obviously, that's the thing that attracts us to a youngster in the beginning. If I hear from someone, and I hear in all different kinds of ways and from people all over the country about prospective athletes and great players, then we immediately look at them and say, yes, they are very talented, they have the physical ability to be a great athlete. Then the very next thing we do is look at their academic record, because it's become more and more difficult with the pressure and the time demands that are placed on athletes for them to participate in a highly competitive program, but at the same time maintain the academic standards to get a degree at the University of Texas. So we go right away to their high school counselor and say, may I see the high school record of this athlete? We look at their rank in class, we look at their grades, and we look at their test scores. And the test scores in many instances aren't as high as we would like for them to be. So if that's the case, we go back to the high school, we say, did this athlete have good work habits? And if there was one single quality, after obviously identifying the physical skill, it's what kind of work habits does a youngster have? If they know how to work hard, if they're an overachiever, if they're willing to get down and dig, then we think they can be a great athlete and a successful student.
So the work habit has an awful lot to do with the students who you might be interested in looking at.
That's exactly right.
Even if the grades are not up to par? Or?
Well, certainly we want them to have good grades, but I would take an athlete who works hard in the classroom and who works hard on the basketball court, who might not be quite as talented, before I would take the great talent who never applies themselves. Because sometimes through years of establishing bad habits, not knowing how to work, and not being motivated to do it, is something that I can't overcome, or I can't help them overcome. So if they're willing to work hard, then we know that the sky's the limit.
And then there are a lot of, there's an awful lot of help that you have for those, I suppose.
That's exactly right. But you can only be helped if you're willing. And if you tell me that a prospect is a great athlete, but they're lazy, it's hands off as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, well, I think that is just so neat. I've always wondered how, as a coach, do you wind up at the end of the season, you know, some kids or some students graduate, how do you manage not to lose the whole team, or is that planned?
Well, it's one of my objectives as a coach to win, of course, but it's also my objective to have the athletes here graduate from the University of Texas, and that should be the ultimate in terms of their goal. That should be what they want to achieve. And they're only going to play basketball and be basketball players for a few years, but they're going to be people, and they're going to be business people, and they're going to go into careers for the rest of their life. So I want them to leave the University of Texas with a degree, and we're very proud of the fact. I can't tell you my one-loss record, but I can tell you that we've never had an athlete complete 4 years of eligibility at the University of Texas who has not gotten a degree.
How wonderful.
And that's a record I want to maintain.
That's wonderful. So they know when they come there to play that they're going to have to make the grades.
That's exactly right. There is no pro league for women at this point, so it's not logical to have that as a career option. You know, a lot of times the guys say, well, it's not important that I do my schoolwork. I'm going to sign a pro contract and make $1 million, and in many instances they do. But a young woman who leaves the Lady Longhorn program should have something to show for it when she goes away.
Right. Do you see that possibly happening, a pro league for
Yes,
women?
I do. And in fact, we've had 2 attempts at a pro league for women, but they've both been premature in my estimation and therefore not successful financially. But I think it is something that will come down the road. But I think it must be an outgrowth of the collegiate game, and we're just now getting to that point.
That is absolutely wonderful. You said that the Lady Longhorns won't go in for pro leagues because there are nothing of that existence. What do they generally go into? What are some of the areas that they go into?
Well, it's very varied, and it used to be that most of them wanted to coach because, as I mentioned earlier, if you're an active person and you like that, then that's what you're drawn to. But now we're seeing them diversify, just as we're seeing women in all different professions. You know, used to, when I graduated, I thought the only thing you could do was teach. You know, you either stayed home and didn't go to college, or you went to college and became a teacher. But now there's so many opportunities and career options for women that I think it's just like the cross-section of all student bodies. Athletes are into all different areas, engineering, communication, very varied.
And what are some of the other things that are some of the other subjects or areas that entails this particular area, like the, what else would students have to study, some of the other subjects?
Well, I think people are under misconception that if you major in physical education, that means you get to play all day, and that you don't have to take solid courses. But in reality, every student who enters Texas or any other institution generally takes the same curriculum. And that's a core curriculum consisting of English and math and foreign language and science and all of those things. And it's only in the upper level classes or in the second 2 years that you really get involved in your particular major or your specialization. So it's important that a person make good grades and that they apply themselves in those basic courses. And I have athletes say all the time, well, I didn't do well in this course because this is not what I like. But that's not life. We all have to do things that we don't like, and all of those courses are important, and it's been emphasized over and over at the high school level this year. If you fail one course, you can't compete. So you can't pick and choose the things that you like. You have to be diligent in all of it.
So you're saying that there are a number of different areas one could go into after graduation?
Oh, for sure. Basketball is just something you do as an extracurricular activity. Now, there are a lot of athletic-related jobs that are opening up for women. Athletic trainers, administrators, sportscasters, all of those kinds of things, which have been offshoots of the growth in women's athletics. So again, a lot of fields opening up for women that we have thought of as being traditionally men.
I think that's great.
I think it's very exciting. It's very exciting.
It's about time. Well, you seem like you enjoy it so much, and when working with the girls, I had an opportunity to meet several of the players, the Lady Longhorns, at Sanchez back in the Black Heritage Month, February. And they gave us some, what should I say, they took some of the kids out on the court and they played with them. The kids enjoyed that so
much. A little
much.
clinic demonstration kind of thing.
Yes.
I think that many times they enjoy working with young people, and we all like to share our expertise, in particular with youngsters, and that's what happens with the basketball players in many instances. And a lot of them think they don't want to teach, think they don't want to coach, but they find themselves enjoying that kind of situation and find out they're very good at it. And certainly that's an inspiration. And we all know that coaching, any kind of teaching, is not the the very best job in terms of salary, but we all like to do the things that we love, and we're much better off doing those things than going into it strictly for money.
Yeah, I think that's true. Absolutely. Because there isn't quite a bit of money involved with it.
Right.
I was interested in finding out about the plays, you know, how you set those up. Do you just dream them up, or how does that happen?
Well, I think as in any profession, we learn from each other. And the coaching profession is one where there's great camaraderie, and coaches always like to tell how they did it, you know, their secret plays, and we continually learn from each other. And I watch television. I may watch the Boston Celtics and see something that I think, well, I think we can do that. Certainly not on the same skill level, but with a certain degree of skill. And I think that's one of the things that's important for people who want to get into coaching. You can't just wake up one morning and say, I want to coach. It's something that you must be actively involved in from youth up. And there are a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of opportunity to get involved as a manager, as a player, as a statistician on high school and junior high programs, and then it just carries right on through.
That is just so neat. I'm so excited about your program.
Thank you.
And so proud of you all, you and the girls, and I don't know why I want to call them girls, the Lady Longhorn.
That's okay.
And so, you know, so proud of them because you do have an excellent record.
Thank you. I'm very proud of them too. They're very fine young people, and they sort of let their enthusiasm carry over, and I think that's one of the reasons that we've been enjoying popularity that we have recently.
What about their practice time? How much time would you say that they are actually in practice in a given one day?
Practice itself only involves a couple of hours, or maybe 2.5 if you involve the taping, the preparation for practice. But the time demands on an athlete are great. They have to do additional things, like we have conditioning programs that involve weight training, some running, those kinds of things. In addition to that, they're required to attend study sessions every day, particularly the younger players, to establish proper study habits when they enter college, get into the college scene. And all of that, and we're finding more and more that there are other demands on their time to do things, to work with youngsters, to go out to the public schools, which is a good thing, but it means that they have to work that into their schedule. All of that, in addition to the travel associated with games, means that they have very, very little free time.
And they have to be in excellent physical condition, I would think, too.
I think that's one of the biggest changes I've seen in the time that I've been coaching. All of the things that an athlete can do to condition themselves and make themselves better. In the beginning, we used to think that it was foreign for young women to do weight training, but now it's a very integral part of our program and something that they get very involved with. And we just are learning more and more about the human body and finding out that it can do some pretty amazing things.
I know, and they have to be in such good condition, you know, to run up and down the court, because I remember when I was in school, we played half court.
Yes, you probably were told, just like I was, that women shouldn't run because it wasn't good for us or because we weren't able to do it. But I think we've long ago proven that to be false. And you're seeing people now, in fact, women running the marathons and do very well. And I think that as we see women have better competitive opportunities and better coaching, we're going to be even more amazed at some of the physical feats they're capable of.
I think that is so neat. What about some of the other schools that you play? How do you feel when you're getting ready to go up against a team that you know it's really good and had a real good record? How do you feel about that?
Well, I think we're all competitive by nature, and I think we all like a challenge. And sometimes when we are pushed or pressured, we do our very best. And I think that's true of most teams. When you know that you have to be good, you're better than you are when you know you can slide by. We're in the Southwest Conference, which is the same alignment as the men's programs. And there are some teams in our conference that are very competitive. There are some teams that aren't quite so competitive. And I'd much rather play the good teams than play those teams at the bottom, because we get ourselves ready to play against the good teams. And I find myself having to talk them into playing against some of the teams that aren't as strong.
And they really do deal with that, right?
They really
deal with
do.
that?
I think all of us, when we're confronted with a problem, we face it head on, as opposed to maybe not being able to get up for things that we think aren't as challenging.
That's great. How about rules? Do you have any specific rules for your players, like early to bed, special diets, or those kinds of things?
Well, I think every team or every group has rules. And I've sort of changed during my coaching career in terms of the rules. I used to make a hard, fast set of rules and say, do these things. And of course, I never really knew if they did them. So I've sort of changed now. And I've decided that the best pressure in the world is peer pressure. So we have a little meeting each spring, and I have each team decide on their rules. And they decide what their standards are going to be and what they want their team to represent. It's worked out very, very well. In most instances, I've found that they're very much tougher on themselves than I might be. But generally, we have as our underlying theme pride, and the fact that we want to be a credit to ourselves and to the University of Texas. And I think if you can carry that throughout everything you do, then I think you're not going to have too many problems.
Would one of your rules be no smoking? I know when we were in school, that was one of the rules. And why is that? I think students might need to know that.
Well,
Why?
certainly those rules I assume every team is going to establish, and those are always the first ones. No smoking, because obviously it's been proven time and again that it's detrimental to your health, and if you're trying to be the best you can be, then you need to be concerned with physical conditioning. So absolutely no smoking, and I can't ever remember in my coaching career having players who smoked.
Great.
So I think today's young people are becoming more and more aware that it's not the cool thing to do, that it's not a wise decision to make early in your life. So no smoking goes without saying. No drugs. That's the one thing which will get you in trouble quicker than anything else. That's an absolute. If you have problems with drugs, then you're no longer on our team. That's just the way it is. No smoking, and they determine themselves that they cannot be at their best if they consume alcohol during the season. So we don't drink from the time school starts until the season is over. Now, I'm not going to say they never do, because in the off season I'm sure that they do to a certain extent, but it's not something we do during the season. We have some other rules, so that you must not miss class. There is no reason to ever cut a class, and it's a temptation at the collegiate level because the professor doesn't always check roll. If there are 500 people in a class, who knows if you're not there. But we say that if you're going to be successful, you must be there. You wouldn't miss practice, you can't miss class. We try to be as courteous and considerate of each other as we can, and we have some little rules along those lines. They put in a rule that you should be in bed by 11 o'clock the day before a game. Now, if I were making the rules, I probably wouldn't have put that one in, but that's an example of how they can be stricter on themselves than I might be.
That's so wonderful, and I think it's so important for even younger students who might be interested in going into this area to hear this and to start thinking about the importance of all of the things that you've said.
I think it takes a commitment. It really takes a commitment to do anything if we want to be really good at it, and athletics is no different from that. The commitment has to start from within. My players don't abide by the rules because I say do it. They abide by the rules because they think that it's part of their commitment to be as good as they can be. And that commitment must start at an early age. An athlete cannot be successful unless they're disciplined, and that discipline in many instances must come from within.
That's absolute. So would that be your advice then to young people who might be looking at the area of athletics
That's
as a
exactly
career
right.
to go into?
Yes.
What would you tell them?
I tell them to set goals, to have hard, fast goals that they want to achieve, and then work as hard as they can to achieve those. Don't be discouraged if you don't reach those goals in the first or the second or even the third try. But if the goals are worthwhile, then it's worth making the effort to do.
Thank you. So wonderful. And we want to remind our students that listening to Jody Conradt from the Lady Longhorns at Longhorn UT, Austin, that it's not going to be easy. Whatever it is that you want to pursue in life, whatever career that might be, it's lots of hard work. You can do it. It's worth working for. because it's your future. Thank you.